I am from the Swinomish and Tulalip Tribe, and I am here today to carry the message from the silenced, to show you some of Native America's beauty, and to encourage our collective consciousness to reimagine the way we see each other. Can we relearn to see as human beings? Does the photographic image impact our lives and the lives of those around us? And if it does, can we use that image to encourage and inspire one another? Do something for me. Try to remember the last time that you saw a Native American in massive media. Is this what you saw? If it is, I wouldn't be surprised, because between 1990 and 2000, there were 5,868 blockbuster released films. 12 included of American Indians. All of them showed Indians as spiritual or in tune with nature. 10 of them as impoverished and or beaten down by society. 10 as continually in conflict with whites. However, the image of the professional photographer, the musician, the teacher, the doctor, they were largely absent. What's interesting is how this image manifests itself into our psyche. You see, when this image is shown to a young Native person, they report feeling lower self-esteem and depressed about what they are able to become or would like to become. Shockingly, when shown to the white counterpart, their self-esteem is raised. If society only sees us as these images, it means that our modern issues don't exist. Nor do our efforts like schooling and economic development through sovereignty and nation building. How can we be seen as modern, successful people if we are continually represented as the leathered and feathered vanishing race? For the last 10 years, my work has been about counteracting these images to create positive indigenous role models from this century. My most recent endeavor, Project 562, is dedicated to photographing every indigenous nation in the United States. So far, I've driven 50,000 miles, shot 106 tribes, and shot thousands of rolls of film. And at each tribe that I go to, I interview folks. I ask them questions about identity and stereotypes. What does it mean to be a real Indian? How do we deal with blood quantum? Tell me about some of the issues within your community. But most importantly, you tell me your story, such as this one. Here we have Leon Grant. Leon is an Omaha Indian, and he was reared on a ranch in Nebraska. When he was 16 years old, he decided that he wanted to pursue an education. So he left a note for his folks while they were in town and proceeded to walk for 49 days until he arrived in Phoenix, Arizona. When he got there, he put himself through community college, undergrad, theology school, and eventually law school. And then he set up American Indian centers all across the country. Because Leon told me at that time, Indian people were still considered lesser citizens. This is a photo of my cousin Anna. Anna is Swinomish, Wallapai, Havasupai, Cherokee, Chimmewabi, and Scowlitz. And I was talking to Anna the other day, and I said, Anna, do you think that racism still exists in America? Oh, and Anna started crying, and I was like, oh, Anna. And she said, you know, Matika, if you want to know about that, all you have to do is go to the lunchroom. You can see the segregation. And she said, I just don't think it's ever going to change. And I said, oh, honey, of course it can change. And you see, I sat in that lunchroom so I could relate to her. I just love her. This is Marva Sync Jones. Marva is from the village of Nilichinden, which is a tribe in Northern California with a colonized name as the Smith River Rancheria. However, the people are Tolowa. And Marva is rad. You'd love her. And you'll notice her 111 tattoo. And when I asked her about its significance, she said, I always knew I wanted to get my 111, especially after learning the history of it being outlawed in California. You see, California independent Indian tattooing was outlawed in the early 1900s, so I always thought I was going to have one. Learning our history empowered me to get my 111. It was traditionally applied through the tapping method. For me, it signifies my commitment to who I am. It signifies my ability to carry forward my ancestors' message and the work that my people have laid for my community. It also signifies courage and strength. I've had it since January 20th of 2011. It'll be 2 years. I never thought about the experience of people staring at you everywhere you go until I got it. I really wasn't prepared for that. I didn't get it for those reasons. I'm really not one for attention. Whether it's negative or positive, it's about a 50-50. Airports, stores, and public places, I feel like it's made me not look at people anymore. You can tell that people judge you. You can totally tell when they don't like you, and sometimes they acknowledge you and they say, "Nice tattoo, sister." But some people are just like, "Who is this freak? Why would you do that?" I thought you could tell it's tribal, but I guess people don't know. So it's brought on a new sense of patience for me. This is a photo of a White Mountain Apache crown dancer. I had the rare opportunity to take this photo while I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They represent the mountain spirit gods and dance for traditional sacred reasons. This is Starflower Montoya. Star is Barona and Taos Pueblo, and she's wearing her traditional manta that she received during her coming-of-age ceremony. And when I asked Star, how do we navigate being an Indian in 2013, she said, my grandma said it best. You have to wear your moccasin on one foot and your tennis shoe on the other. This is Paul Chavez. Paul is Bishop Paiute and Apache, which is in the Owens Valley, and it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. And Paul has spent his life dedicated to the preservation of Native culture, first by serving as the tribal chairman, by setting up TANF programs throughout Indian country, and by working with Native youth. And while I was visiting Paul in Paiute country, I was most taken back by the story of the Paya, which means water in Paiute. And pre-colonization, the Paiute people constructed and managed 60 miles of intricate irrigation systems for millennia, long before the city of Los Angeles secured its largest water source through modern engineering over a century ago. After the Indian Wars of 1863, surviving Paiute returned home to find their ancient waterworks taken over by white settlers. Today, 150 years later, the Paiute tribe is still in litigation for those waterworks. It's a prime example of our tribe's continued struggle for sovereignty. And when I talked to Paul about these issues, he said, the important thing is that we are here. We survived. If you think about it, every Native that is alive today is a result of our ancestors surviving. So you have to ask yourself, why are you here? Why am I here? I've come to the conclusion for myself that we are here to carry on as a tribe. Otherwise, we will become our colonizers, and we'll just blend in. And that's our struggle, is not to do that, because being a Native person from here, or wherever you're at, there is value in being who you are. Not only as a tribe, but for the sustainability of the earth. And that has a lot to do with our traditional sustainable ways. The most fundamental part of being sovereign is believing that you are sovereign, believing that you are a nation. That's the basis. Then the next step is acting upon that. This is Jane Blackman. Jane is from the Paula tribe in Southern California, and she's a devout Catholic. And Jane wanted to have her photo taken in the mission. Here we have a photograph of Hayes Lewis. Hayes is the superintendent for the Zuni School District. And really exciting, the Zuni tribe just broke away from the neighboring district. And when we were talking about how it was that he come to decide this, and we were talking about how federal policy has affected education, he said, the next step in development is actually changing the policies and the structure of education that will make a difference. If you just take the structure of education the way it is, with its policies, practices, and mandates, what difference does it make if you don't go back into the community and basically rebuild from the bottom up? This is Gailish Bommelin. Guy Lish is also Tolowa, and he is an Athabascan speaker, and he teaches his language in the tribal school there. And since I've been on this journey, I've met Athabascan speakers in Alaska, in California, in Arizona, New Mexico, and the southern tribes say that the northern ones got tired of walking. This is Mary Evelyn Baumgarten. Mary is just lovely, and Mary is a retired professor from the University of New Mexico, where she taught indigenous education, and Mary is passionate about training teachers to work within indigenous communities. And after a very long conversation about the history of boarding schools in this country and assimilation, she said, "When are we going to stop asking our children to choose between cultural education and Western education?" I think we are ready to stop the assimilation process. The time to change is already among us. This is Thosh, Anthony Thosh Collins from the Salt River Pima tribe. And Thosh is a bird singer. That's his rattle there. And Thosh is dedicated to total body wellness by eating mostly plant-based foods. And when I'm with Thosh, it is always way easier for me to choose the salad over the French toast. So I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We went down there for Gathering of Nations. And I got there and I was like, oh my God, who am I going to, there's 21 tribes in New Mexico. Who am I going to photograph and how am I going to reach all of these people? And so I put it on Facebook, you know, like I'm looking for friends and I need to go to these tribes. And I realized that my friend Dana's mom was from Navajo Nation, and Valerie called me and she said, I'll take you. And so we drove and drove and drove and drove down a dirt road until we finally arrived here at Ray and Fanny Mitchell's house. Ray and Fanny are 82 and 83 years old. They've been married for 65 years, and they only speak Dene. And so their daughter translated for me. And Ray is a retired railroad worker. He's retired to ranch life. And Fanny is, she's a weaver. And here where they live on Navajo Nation, they live without running water or electricity, and they live on a sheep camp. And Fanny shears the sheep, dyes the wool, and weaves the rugs. And, you know, when I was going out there, I was feeling so sorry for myself because it was my birthday. And I was upset that I was getting another year older, but also because I was away from my family and my friends, and then I got here, and they made me mutton stew and handmade tortillas, and they prayed for my journey, and they made me feel like family, and I just felt so blessed. So I was going into the famous Grand Canyon to photograph the Havasupai people. And I called Matthew. And I said, you know, after I got permission from the tribal council to go there, I said, I would like to come. I'd like to come on Friday. And he said, okay, well, do you hike? And I was like, I have running shoes. He said, okay, cool, fine. Do you ride horses? And I said, yeah, I have cowboy boots. And he was like, we're going to put you on a helicopter. And so they took me down into the Grand Canyon, and Matthew, he says to me, Matika, to get here, all you have to do is drive up old Route 66. You'll see a sign for Havasupai. Turn right there. Drive until you see a helicopter. When you get there, tell the pilot you're an Indian. He'll let you on. He'll bring you down. I was like, what? You want me to what? So my mentor told me that courage is having fear and doing it anyways. So I mustered all of my courage. I got in my car and I drove Route 66. I looked for the sign. I took the right. I found the helicopter. I showed him my tribal ID. I got on the helicopter and I arrived down there. And when I got off the helicopter, Benji and Matthew were waiting for me, and all of my fear dissipated. And this photo was taken at about 11 o'clock at night after a full day of shooting in the canyon and all around their beautiful village. And the Havasupai people consider themselves the guardians of the Grand Canyon. Havasupai means the people of the blue-green water. And this is Matthew in his traditional regalia with his daughter. So the next day I took this photo. This is Rex to Lucy. And when Benji brought me over to see Rex, Rex said, you know, I really have a hard time with talking with outsiders because in 2000, surveyors came in and they took our blood and they said they were going to help us with diabetes. And then they used our blood to try to prove that we weren't from the canyon. And so I didn't set up my microphone, I didn't take my camera out of my bag, and I sat and visited with Rex for a while. And we talked about what it's like. You know, I said, I grew up on the res. I too have suffered from the effects of our intergenerational trauma. I too am recovering. And we had similar paths as teachers in tribal schools. And we cried for the students that we'd lost. Finally, after Rex heard that I could make really good fry bread, he said, you can turn your microphone on. What would you like me to tell the people? And he said, remind them that we all come from the same Mother Earth. I think they may have forgotten. Tell them that all of us, the brown, the red, the yellow, the purple, we are all from the same place. And our job is to take care of our mother. But mostly, tell them we survived. And as I was driving out of the Grand Canyon on the road to come here, I was just so overwhelmed by gratitude, and I was crying, and I started thinking about all the people that have supported my journey so far, the generous Kickstarter contributors and the people that have fed me and housed me and prayed for me and sent me off in a good way. And I realized that people are supportive because they believe in the cause. Because at the core of it all, we all want to remember that we come from the same place, that we belong to one another. And so, the journey continues. Tigwitzi.